there, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Angie and I'm a chemist who loves makeup. So I am making this video because I bought the Jeffree Star Shane Dawson Palette Conspiracy Palette, and there have been videos of people finding hairs, fibers in their eyeshadow palette, and I am making this video because I too found one in one of my shadows. So I'm gonna kind of give you my perspective on what I think happened, how I feel about this. When I was doing my makeup yesterday, I ended up pulling out some sort of fiber from just a theory. So obviously this was kind of concerning because other people had found things, but I kind of just let it go because I know I've been using that shade quite a bit. There's like dust, fibers, like I can see little fibers floating around as I'm like sitting here. And so I had assumed I might have pressed it in because I've been using my finger, so if anything had landed on it while I was using it and I pressed it in and I had pulled it out, and it looked like a very, like a thin, like kind of like plastic, like it didn't look like a human hair, animal hair, nothing that seemed to come off of a living being, and I just kind of chalked it up to that. But so I will kind of show you a picture of what it looked like when I pulled it out. Now mind you, I used it after I pulled it out, so there's only like a slight little part that you could see where it looked like something had come out of there, and it was not a very deep embedded one as we've seen with some of the other ones, like in Ashley Kyle's video. She showed a whole bunch of them, but I had been putting together the pictures for all the different colorants, and I had taken my own pictures of the individual shades in the palette, and in Just a Theory, in that picture, I could see a little hair off to the side, which is where I had found it when I had pulled it out. And that picture was taken when I had first opened it, prior to swatching anything, prior to touching it. And I had opened it a couple of times to look at it prior to taking pictures, but because I pulled it out after I used it, it's hard to tell, but there was something in there, so I did want to share that with you guys because I think it's important that I let you know that I did find something. So I don't know if when I took that picture, if that hair was laying on top of it, and from my use, I kind of pushed it down a little bit, or if it came from when it was manufactured. I do believe that it should be addressed. If you have found one and you want an exchange, you should get an exchange. I know people would prefer an exchange over a refund because obviously you wanted this palette. You worked very hard to get these palettes on the first launch. I think that an explanation is deserved. I do have experience in manufacturing consumer products, not necessarily powders, mostly liquids, but that being said, I do think that this happened in the pressing room. I don't believe this happened during compounding or mixing. Just don't feel like that based on where these hairs are being found. They're being found sticking out of the top layer and kind of mixed into a little bit lower. I do not think that this happened where they were gluing the pans down. I don't think the pressure that would be pushed on already pressed pans with a brush would be significant enough to embed it, especially because you would see a distortion on how the eyeshadow looked when you received it. So when we see them walk into the pressing room and this facility, this isn't what I would refer to as a sterile environment. Clean, but not sterile. Because you see Jeffree walk in, you see Shane walk in, and they are in regular clothes. Or they are not in even a lab coat. They have not changed anything. They need to be cleaned regularly in order to minimize the risk of microorganisms, all this kind of stuff. It's to minimize the risk. I will put an article down below kind of talking about the difference between them if you want to look more into it. And you can even see that there is not a door, but it's like a curtain with these plastic curtains, and you walk through them, but there's still opportunity for stuff to float in. So I think what had happened is probably at the point where they were pressing it, that they wiped it down. This is like an open table area. So they spread the eyeshadows out, and then this presser comes down, presses it, and then you have your pan. What I think happened is some sort of fiber or something floated down from the air onto this table. The eyeshadow was spread out and then it was pressed. So that's when it comes in. That being said, obviously people don't want something hairy looking, fibery looking, sticking out of their eyeshadow. That's where these quality checks are important. So when they would check these eyeshadows, they check however many out of whatever. In this case, there was about 1 million palettes total between the two palettes that they had sold. So you would check so many out of those. You cannot check every single palette, but you need to check a very, very good amount of palettes. He has also worked with this company for a while, so they can kind of relax a little bit. So if out of 1 million palettes, if only 100 of them have a hair in one shade, that's 0.01% that have this in there, which is a very, very small percentage of people. That being said, if you do find one, you should be allowed to get a refund or an exchange. This also applies for eyeshadows which are not glued in well, or the pan has fallen out of the eyeshadow palette. There are gonna be checks to see if this happens. So again, if it's a really low number, it's not as big of a widespread issue, in my opinion. Obviously, you can have differing opinions. And I think that's what happened. For me, this seems to be very isolated. We're finding it in different shades in the palette, not consistently one shade, and it doesn't seem to be an extremely large number of people. Obviously, there was 1 million palettes. There's going to be problems. Fibers like this in eyeshadows may have been a regular occurrence before. Honestly, I haven't found any in any of mine, but it also took me 2 weeks to find it in this palette. So maybe I'm just not the most observant person in the world. And so obviously after the whole Jaclyn Hill lipstick thing, where people are looking with like microscopes and heavily looking into things, these things are gonna be more highly scrutinized. So it would be nice to know and have Jeffree Star Cosmetics come out and tell us what's normal, what is not normal. Like, there was actually a really, really good post by Temptalia. She reviews like a lot of makeup all the time, and she has a lot of very, very close-up pictures, and she went through what was common with lipsticks and what was not common with lipsticks. And I think that's important, because I think with brands that are influencer owned, we are gonna look at them more heavily, because these are people who have gained the trust of their audience. But it would be nice to know what is commonly found, what's not common, that kind of a thing. Personally for me, I'm gonna continue to use this eyeshadow palette. I don't think that one little fiber, it didn't look like a hair. It looks like it may have just been a fiber that came off of something. This product has preservatives in it, so I'm not really worried. But if you find it in there, and like the one girl who had to pull out half of her Trisha shadow, like that, those people I think are entitled to a refund. Where I would become more concerned is if more and more people are coming out with having problems, if there seems to be a very large percentage of people that are having these problems. Since I did find that fiber in my shadow palette, I did want to make this video and kind of tell you my opinion on it, but I would love to hear what your opinion is down below. This is just from my perspective, and I am going to be doing an additional video where I break down all of the ingredients in this eyeshadow palette. So if that is of interest to you, please click the subscribe button, because that will be coming out soon. And with that, I will see you in my next video. Bye!